The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. And this is Sally Falco from Pressfeed. We're hosting this webinar today. We do one every month. And this one is on why you need a mobile-friendly online newsroom in the age of smartphone reporting. And we have a hashtag. So if you're going to be tweeting, please use the hashtag mobile news. And we would be very happy to get any comments from you. If you have questions and comments, you can put them into your chat or question section on your dashboard, on your webinar dashboard, and I will keep an eye on them. But mostly we will answer the questions at the end. So I am the president of Pressfeed, and I am the co-creator of the social newsroom. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, there's my handle at Sally Falco. And with us today we have Shashi. Good morning, Shashi.
Hey, Sally, how are you doing? Thank you for having me on the webinar.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And as you can see, he's the Chief Marketing Officer of Surefire Social, and they focus on local marketing. But he's also the adjunct faculty at the Georgetown University, specifically for Search Social and Mobile. So he's the perfect guy to have with us today. So these are just some of the headlines that I found while I was looking for material about reporting and journalists and how they're using mobile devices and the pressure that journalists are under right now. They're on the go all the time, and they are expected to be able to produce all kinds of material 24 hours a day, wherever they are. And as you can see, there's been a lot of material written in the media about how journalism is being changed by digital devices. And they are the great majority of journalists and bloggers, of course, are using digital devices to do their reporting. And this was just some of the comments that we found. The first one from Pointer, which is very much a journalism-focused website. So smartphones has made it possible to do part of their job with nothing more than a phone. Journalists we spoke to use smartphones every day for work. This is the age of smartphone reporting. And this one from Neiman Labs I thought was pretty interesting. And he was just saying, the writer was saying that he had heard an interview on a public radio station and that he never would have believed that the interview that he was listening to had been captured on a cell phone. Sure, I knew a phone could record sound, but not broadcast quality sound. It's very interesting. So in terms of from a PR and a media relations perspective, we have to realize that the vast majority of the people we would like to see our news content are going to be looking for it on a mobile device. So how they find it on a mobile device is very, very important. Or if they find it, now that Google has done this new update. Shashi, what do you think?
I think just the way the lifestyle is of people, we keep our mobile device on our side all the time. And mostly news. I mean, Sally, I don't know if you do this, but I have the bad habit, like probably most of the people I know, where the first thing they do after getting up is checking their mobile phones. And what are the top 2 to 3 things that people do online is look for news. And if you have a good newsroom, a lot of the important traffic that comes from organic search could be coming through your newsroom. They find your article on their mobile phone and then check you out. So I think it's a very natural progression to the way our lifestyle is, with the mobile device in our pockets all the time, to actually go and see all the content we need.
Exactly. So this is from a survey with reporters. This is what they're using their smartphones for. Finding story ideas, eyewitnesses to an event that's happening. Look, they search hashtags around news events. I'm sure that all of you are familiar with the concept of the second paragraph. So if there's some big news story going on, they can't just keep reporting the same thing over and over. They have to come up with other story angles around that news event. So they're constantly searching for what people are talking about, who they might be able to talk to that could give them more background detail, something else that's happening related to that incident. They're using it to record audio files, shooting videos, taking photographs, editing those photographs, doing their live reporting from a remote location, and then even filing stories on the go. If they did a whole interview on the way home, they can just do all the editing and then send it in. So their whole job is revolving around these smartphones. And I thought this was a really interesting photograph that I found. Here's this reporter with $13,000 worth of camera gear, and he's using his phone to report on an incident. So,
yeah, I have an example of my friend Jim Long, who works for NBC. He's there in most of the top NBC stories and content, but he also has a very interesting social following where people look at his Twitter feed and Facebook feed for all the places that he goes to. So it's very interesting to see that example that you gave, where news is being created. Yes, there is a place for expensive equipment, but at the same time, I think reporters also have got used to the fact that at a time and place, it's very easy to create content. I was doing a consultancy for the Fox station in the Washington DC area, and you should see how, like, back of the scenes reporting through their mobile devices is actually helping them gain an audience on their TV show. So great point here, Sally.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see this all the time that when all of this started, like almost 10 years ago, the media was quite resistant and they didn't like the idea of journalists building their own brand. But now it's encouraged. And because, as you say, it helps those media outlets. If that journalist has a huge following of his own or her own now, those people will then go and read the story or watch the video clip or whatever it is. So they're doing a complete 360 in this news content development. It's not only on the big media sites, but it's all over. And that's one of the things that I just wrote a blog post last week about using Twitter for media relations and how to connect with these journalists, and the fact that so many of these journalists are very open and they're actually asking on their Twitter and Facebook and saying, I need this, I'm looking for that, do you know anybody who I can interview about? So there are other ways that it also helps you to be able to know what the journalists are writing about and connect with them.
One thing I wanted to add to this, Sally, and you bring up a very interesting point about newsrooms have to be multimedia. Like you said about sources, and I'll give you an example from my days at Network Solutions, where we used to have a survey for small businesses very prominently featured in our newsroom. Even though the survey was like a couple of years old, when people were searching for it on Google, they would always come back to that survey, and without them having to look at, hey, I need a picture for this, should I go and look at a stock photograph, like providing all the resources by using a newsroom, I think is very important. And not everybody is looking for this on their desktops. So providing a newsroom which is easy to access on a mobile device with the video, I think is very key to any strategy that you have on the web today.
Right. Because this is the big question. Are they going to find your content? They are on the mobile device. They are searching for all these things. So if your material is not formatted correctly, it has no chance of showing up. So Shashi, I would like you just to walk us through from your perspective what's happening in mobile and why it's, I mean, I've given them now from the media perspective, but just in general, can you give us your viewpoint on why you have to be mobile first?
So I wanted to start off and provide a framework for a digital strategy that is mobile first, because I think as PR professionals, marketers, we don't want to spend all our energy on just technology. So in order to avoid that, our thinking should be mobile first. What I mean by that is, instead of saying like, hey, I'm going to create two kinds of websites, one for the mobile visitors and one for the desktop visitors, I think those days are gone. And now if you look at email, like I think predominantly a large number of us check email on mobile very often, especially when we are not at our desks. So similarly, when you think about newsrooms, when you think about websites, when you think about email, you have to think about how is this content going to render on a mobile device first. Because it's easy on a desktop for you to provide a great experience, and if you can provide the same experience on a mobile device, you definitely win. So I had put together a few slides. Like if you go to the next slide, I'm talking about Mary Meeker's internet trends. If you're not already watching those trends, I think you should look for it. She works for KPCB, and the mobile use is not going to go away. I wish, and sometimes when you have kids, you think about like, hey, I wish one day we could all be mobile free. But the practical part of it is that it's very easy now. Like when you want to do a search, it's easy to do it on the mobile device. And if you look at how between 2014 and 2015, the number of the increase in the mobile searches has really gone up. The usage, the total number of hours that people are spending has online has gone up, with mobile digital media actually kind of beating it in the last 2 years. And then on the next slide, I'm talking about this is not going away. Like I work with some excellent folks. I've been working in teams where a large part we had a lot of millennials. But look at what they say. My smartphone never leaves my side night or day. Mm-hmm. I'm not a millennial,
they got
but
it
I would probably...
Is it on the pillow with them, Shashi? They have it in their bed with them.
Yeah, if I was speaking to all of you in the audience in person, I would probably ask how many of you use your smartphone as your alarm device too.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't bought an alarm clock for 2 decades, I think, because the mobile phone is now my alarm clock as well. So it's got multi-functionality. I personally set up all my tweets once, and that's just after waking up. I look at my news feeds. I search for content, and whatever is interesting to me, I feel is interesting. So the fact that news consumes a lot is very interesting, and it's not going to go down. In fact, it's going to go up. And then on the next slide, I'm talking about the ability for, I mean, mobile is,
okay.
Sorry, the next slide. People are talking about how people will have multiple devices over the next couple of years. And the Pew Internet Research, which is on the next slide, Sally, like we are all smartphone owners. I mean, in a way, I was actually surprised when they said 2/3 of Americans. I probably would have thought 99%. But then given the fact that sometimes people who don't want to be near a smartphone probably don't want to invest in that. But the majority of the press, the majority of marketing, PR professionals always want to be near their devices. But the main takeaway from this is you're not always in control of the content you're putting out. So if I am in Tyson's Corner, Virginia at Surefire Social, and I take out my phone and look for news, Google is going to give me the news that is nearby my location, so local happenings and events. So this is probably a message for people who haven't thought about how their website will appear in local searches. It's also breaking news. Like yesterday I was traveling in my car and there was a weather event, and since I have an Android phone, like Google sent me a message saying, hey, watch out for this storm. So news events are also popular. And if you are somebody who's putting out a news release, I mean, I don't know if breaking news is usually released in a press release, but it's important to know that the same behavior is there when people are searching for news nearby their place. Right. I'm also like, I hope people will ask us a lot of questions. And this week, look at what Google is doing. It said like, look, we are actually going to help you with tools that journalists can use. If there are tools that journalists can use, like the YouTube Newswire, like why not, right? So, and they're using Storyful as the backbone for that. So every day, most of the top companies are thinking about how can we make sure people who are on mobile devices can also engage with us, and they're launching as many resources as possible with this. I mean, YouTube is a great experience. I haven't included it in my slides, but some of your YouTube videos may actually be watched on television using Chromecast. Sally, do you have a Chromecast at home by any chance?
No, I use Amazon Fire.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's a good one too. I mean, in places, in offices now, instead of using projectors, sometimes people are just taking their mobile phones and projecting it on the screen.
Right.
And what they are projecting is probably your content. So these are some other ways that you can think about using mobile for news. And on the next slide, like Google Now on tap. I would very much like people who like Google Now to put it into the chat room, but I love Google Now. At some point, it tells me where my car is parked. It tells me like, hey, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. You're probably headed to work. Here's how much time it takes. You read some articles yesterday. So since you read the Washington Post, here are some other articles that the Washington Post readers like to do. So your news content has to have every possible opportunity to be found on a mobile device. So if you keep your newsrooms, your websites, your local marketing up to date with the most accurate information, you will get your audience that comes up very easily for you. So think about your news stories based on your interests and location. As Google starts innovating, be on the forefront, much far ahead of Google, because it's your audience who may be going to Google, and that's how you're looking at it. Google Now on tap, very interesting phenomenon. Two things that they haven't yet officially launched it, but some phones may actually get it, is if you're passing by a museum, you can get a message, or you can just ask, is this museum open? You're passing by a restaurant, you can ask, what is the menu of the restaurant? You're passing by a park, either you can ask or it's going to tell you. So chances are, if there is some news around the area that people are walking by with a mobile phone, they'll try to find a way to get that news to you if it is interesting to those people. And I also thought to give another on the next slide. Google searches, and Google made a big announcement, I think, in February of this year, that more Google searches take place on mobile devices than on computers in 2015. Here's some homework for everybody on this panel is, if you have access to your own Google Analytics, go and look at your newsrooms and go to the Google Analytics part, which talks about the acquisition sources and medium, and see, with the audience profiles, and see how many of your newsrooms already are coming through a mobile device. That's a huge learning. If you find that it's more than 40%, you're doing well, and then look at how much time they're spending on it. If that's very important to see, if they're not spending much time there, chances are that your your website is not mobile friendly and people are bouncing off a lot. Sally, let's go to the next slide.
Sorry, I can't get this phone to turn off.
I know it always rings when it should not. Yeah, so one of the things that I wanted to see, like Google had announced sometime in February that from April 21st, Google cares a lot about user experience. It wants, like I've been teaching search, social, and mobile for the past 3 to 4 years, and I cannot have the same course material every 6 months. I have to always change it because technology changes so fast. If you all remember a time when a Google result on a mobile phone was the same as a desktop. Today, it's a totally different experience, specifically if you search for businesses or if you search for, let's say you search for a business. Google knows you want to do three things. You either want to call the business, you want to check their hours, or you want directions, and the last thing is your website, right? If you're a local business. But if you're looking for information from a particular website, Google wants to make sure when people click the Google search link, they're going to a site that is really mobile friendly. So they said April 21st was the cutoff date. Luckily, for most companies who were savvy, who were ahead of the curve, it didn't make any difference. I think Sally was mentioning that the press feed was mobile friendly, so it's not going to make a difference. But people looked at if the mobile sites were not mobile, if the sites were not mobile friendly, they saw a drop. And if you looked at the first 3 pages of Google search results for some of the terms, the mobile friendly ones were always on the top. So there was a shift in the way the searches were coming out. And the page 1 search results for mobile friendly results actually were for the website that were most. How does Google know all this? I mean, chances are that Google gives you a lot of free tools. Google gives you Gmail, Google gives you Google Analytics. It can definitely see from Google Analytics what the search behavior is of people who are coming to your site. And second thing is they provided some tools for checking your site to see if they're mobile friendly. But the number one thing, if you're searching for your website on a mobile device, I think Sally has it in a subsequent slide, you should make sure that the Google has labeled your site as mobile friendly.
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
Gives you, right. It gives you enough information to make sure that they care, like I said, they care about user experience. You care about user experience much more than probably Google does. So that's why I think being mobile friendly is very important.
We've done some research since April 21st, and we did it mainly we did some on the Fortune 500, but we've done quite a lot on the Inc. 500, just because that's more the kind of company that we deal with in Pressfeed. Not necessarily only if you know on the Inc. 500, but just that they're smaller companies. Most of our companies are not Fortune 100 our clients, and amongst those more mid-range smaller companies, almost 60% of them are not yet mobile friendly in their websites.
Wow, I would never have expected that.
I know.
Yeah, I actually have 3 takeaways which probably fit into what you're talking about on the next slide, which is it's inevitable that mobile traffic will soon overtake desktop traffic. I mean, if you look at the trend, it started with 10% mobile. Sally, do you remember the days when the mobile phones were not smart?
Yeah.
But I mean, you had to literally do, like, it was called WAP websites. And the second thing is, like, if you're not mobile friendly, your organic traffic could decrease. Now, if users bounce out of your website, I mean, I think that's such an important metric that tells you whether people are interested in your site or not. It's how much time they're spending on it and how many pages they're seeing on it. So, like I told everybody, maybe you can all send Sally an email. Your homework is to check your analytics to see how many people are coming from mobile devices to your website and your newsroom. Check is the behavior of the number of pages that they see. Of course, I have to take into consideration, like sometimes on a mobile device, you're not going to scroll through many pages. But if they are bouncing off very quickly, I think that's something you need to consider in that.
Absolutely. I'm just going to check and see for questions right now. One second. Did I make this so hard to see? Just trying to get this to open a little bit more so I can see it. 1 second.
Yeah, I didn't see any questions, but if anybody has any
No,
questions,
there
please.
are. There are some. I'm just trying to see them. They make it a little bit hard. There we go. I've got it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. All right. From Sam, he says, you ask people to use Google for all this, but how do you help them actually make money? Google makes money from all these things which reduce the available advertising for the newsmakers. How does Google share the proceeds from all their content? Sam, I think we're talking about your news content and how it shows up in your newsroom and then consequently how it gets found in Google when people search. Do you have anything you want to say about that?
No, I think I agree with you. Like, I think the main thing that you're setting up a web presence or newsroom is to make sure that your content is seen by as many people, whether it's through Google, Yahoo, your email list, or your customers. You're going to make sure that you use the right channels for
Right.
people to look at your content. And we're definitely saying that mobile is very important because the behavior of people who are so busy that any time that they get on their mobile device, they are able to quickly see your content on their mobile devices.
Right. So we have a question from Tinu. What should users do if they see that their mobile traffic has gone down?
I think three things to look at is something that I would encourage everyone to look at is always take your own mobile phone and look at your content. Because sometimes even if you have the best technology in the world, there may be things that actually go wrong, or there may be a particular page that doesn't render as well as the other pages. So that's one, check in on your mobile phone. Second, I think we should send out a follow-up email with the tool that Google gives for people to look at their own mobile friendliness of their website.
Yes.
Definitely check that. The third thing is check the speed. And Google Analytics has a setting that lets you check the speed of your website, because it's quite possible that even if you've taken all the steps that you needed to check your website, if your website is loading slowly, maybe that's another reason why people are bouncing out.
Right.
Hope that was useful, Tinu.
And another question from Sam, he says, only a third of the journalists now are actually trained. People who can actually find background information and not just report on what's going on. And that is valid, Sam. With all the layoffs that have happened, it certainly is true that we don't have as many well-trained journalists as we used to have. And a lot of the older, more experienced journalists have been laid off. And so we have fewer journalists in the newsroom. They're younger, they're less experienced, but that is another reason why they're using all these searches, because the older experienced guys pretty much knew their beat and they had an incredible Rolodex and they knew all the experts that they wanted to speak to. What you have in the newsroom now is these younger, more inexperienced journalists and they don't know everything about a story. When they get given a story, they get assigned a story to write, it may well be something they know nothing about. So they're going to have to turn to Google and start doing searches to find information, people to talk to, people to interview, sources, experts. And that's why your material needs to come up. And they're probably on the go while they're doing it. They're probably doing it on a mobile device, and that's why it's so important that you have a very robust newsroom that has everything in it that the media is asking for, which is a lot more than it used to be, exactly because of your point. Because there were really well-trained, knowledgeable journalists, now we don't have that. So our job 20 years ago was easier than it is today as PR people, because we didn't have to do so much work for the journalists, but we do now. And if you look at it from a different perspective, the kind of glass half full, glass half empty thing, it's actually an opportunity, because there is a gap there. There is a knowledge gap there, and we can step in and fill that gap. We can become a real resource. But you can't become a resource if you're pushing just fluff and my brand, my brand, my brand. You have to look at it from the newspaper's viewpoint. They are looking for real news and newsworthy content. You have to provide that. That's why your newsroom has to have everything that a journalist would need to write a story. But when they find it, and if you have it, my goodness, you're going to be the best thing since sliced bread for them. So those are the questions we have at the moment. So I'm going to continue, and which leads me right into what should be in your newsroom. So we have a checklist that's just been updated for 2015, and it is on the blog, so you can see it down there, press-feed.com/blog, and you'll find it there. It's so you'll see mobile friendly is the top of the list. Then you need to have a featured story with visuals. Visual content is incredibly important to the media. And many of the reporters and editors I've spoken to this last year while we were doing our survey have said, if it doesn't have excellent visuals with it, I'm not interested in the story. I'm not going to print it. I'm not going to publish it. And when I was teaching at university level 20 years ago, the biggest complaint from journalists was there's no PR contact on this press release. I hate to have to tell you, but now, 20 years later, that's still almost top of the list. So, and it is amazing to me, having done the survey and study of like 500 newsrooms every year, that it still is an issue. Many, many newsrooms do not have a contact name anywhere. Not on the homepage of the newsroom, not even on the individual press releases, which to me is crazy, because you send out a press release and it's kind of like saying, I have this great story, please write about it. Oh, but don't call me. And the one that we've put into the newsroom recently, as specifically at the request of journalists, is an expert database with bios and video, because they're looking for these sources and people to quote and people to interview. So they're looking for expert sources, and when they find them, they want to be able to immediately see it in your newsroom and then be able to click on the guy that says, okay, this is my expert about, I don't know, climate change. And then you can click through and see the guy, see his picture, see a little bio, what he does, what's his specific area of expertise, and a video, a little short, 1 minute even, clip about him talking about or her talking about her area of expertise. So the journalist on the other end can see whether this person would be good for a video interview. Absolute must-have: images, image gallery, video gallery with embed codes. Another huge area where it's just not happening. It's like the PR industry didn't get this memo. 80% or more of the journalists and editors say that is their preferred method of delivery for a video. They want the embed code. And yet it's just not available in any corporate newsrooms. The numbers are so low that it's hardly even worth discussing. All your content must be optimized for search, web and mobile, all your text, all your visuals. Your social content should be available. You should be curating industry news and trends, because you know very well as a PR person that the media is not only interested in your story, unless you're Apple or Coca-Cola or Steve Jobs or whatever, but 99% of us are not. So they're going to be looking for a bigger industry or trend story that you have an angle on. And then, as Shashi's been telling you all the way through, analytics, you have to track the results. And I know that this is a bit of a bone of contention with PR people. It's not something we were trained to do, and we're not really statistically and mathematically inclined, most of us, but it's something you have to learn. There are a bunch of skills that PR people really need to know, and that's one of them. So we actually just have a new dashboard, an easy dashboard to use that we're going to be releasing in what, I don't know, like a couple of weeks. Pressfeed has Google Analytics on all their newsrooms, and part of the training that we give our clients is how to use it. But we have seen that it is a little difficult for PR people, and so we've simplified it, and I'm creating, with Tinu, who's on the call today, we're creating a PR measurement dashboard, so stay tuned for that. But you do need to know what's going on. You know, there's an old PR kind of cliche that says you need to know before you go, which refers to research and not writing your releases and stuff before you have all the data, or not trying to do a campaign before you've done the research and looking into what the current situation is and where you want to go. So that's the know before you go, but it applies now to your analytics, because you can track everything online, and you should, because it'll tell you a huge amount of stuff that will help you as you go forward. So here's an example. This is the #1 company for the last 2 years. Unheard of, actually, that one company would be #1 on the Inc. 500 list for 2 years running. This is a company here in Los Angeles called Fuhu. They're doing extremely well. But lo and behold, this is their press room. That's just a list of press releases. No contact names, no image gallery, no experts, no anything about childhood education, which is a huge news topic. I mean, they are missing opportunities for media coverage left and right. And when you run it through the mobile-friendly test that Google has up at the moment, it comes up not mobile-friendly. So here's another one, also in the top 10 on the Inc. 500. Same thing, just a list of press releases, not mobile-friendly. So this is what Fuhu's newsroom could look like. They could have their featured videos, they could have their press contacts, they could have images and videos, tags, all kinds of things. And every time we show this layout to journalists, their reaction is pretty much one for one the same. Oh, it's so simple. I can find everything I want. Why doesn't everybody have one like that? So when you search now for a brand on a mobile device, this is what we're seeing. For companies that have the Pressfeed newsroom, it comes up right underneath the main website. And you'll see here on the one on the left, it actually says mobile friendly right there, which is nice to see. And then this is what the content will look like on the mobile phone. So you see the featured story first, and then you see the other stories, and then you see the sidebar. You get the press contacts. Everything is there. Very nicely laid out, easy. Just scroll through it.
This is really nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
I also like the tip that you gave everyone, that how important it is to have embedded code. And I mean, it's not just journalists, like even people are searching for content on corporate blogs. Like, it's so difficult to, I mean, you have only so much time. It's so difficult to keep looking at it. So the easiest thing that most people would do is look for something on Flickr, and Flickr gives you an embed code. But if you provided features to make it much easier for people to get your content and post it so that it's relevant and you get more exposure, I think that's a great tip, Sally.
Thank you. It's interesting to me, though, Shashi, that some very traditional PR people still don't kind of agree with that. We had a client that had had our newsroom. It was a convention and visitor bureau, and we have quite a few in the travel industry that use our newsroom. It works really well for CVBs. And so this one particular place was a beach town, had it for quite a long while. And then they got a new PR director, and he said that he didn't want it because it had the image and video gallery with embed codes. And he said he was going to rebuild his website and make it so that the journalists had to register, because he didn't want anybody and everybody taking his content. He wanted control over it. Now it's like, that ship has sailed, honestly. We're so far past that right now. But,
Yeah,
it's
I,
interesting.
yeah, I totally agree. Unless, like for example, you can people just taking pictures that are given under Creative Commons. Of course, I'm not in no way an expert on trademarks or anything like that. But what I'm saying is, if somebody's writing a story about you, they're going to either come to your website and get it. I mean, large companies like Apple has their logos that are available for people to use if they're writing about it, subject to like,
Right.
hey, here's the way you can present it. Like, I'll give you something from my end. I used to take a lot of pictures. I've actually reduced it now. My equipment is lying somewhere in the basement, and I use my phone most of the time. But the point I'm making is, like, I've appeared on NPR, I've appeared on a lot of top news sites because of my Flickr pictures being under Creative Commons and having an embed code. So people said, like, okay, I have like a picture that I'm allowed to use subject to my crediting Shashi Velamkonda. So I look at my Google alerts and I took a picture of the USA Today building, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody wanted to write a story about the USA Today Gannett, the news. And so they searched for it, took my picture and put it there. But it's much easier if you provide it and make it easier. So that's my point.
Absolutely, yeah. But I really do believe that it is absolutely vital to have a newsroom with all the features that the media expect to find, and to have it mobile friendly, so that absolutely all your content will show up. Whether the person searching is a journalist, a blogger, a member of the public, a customer, a possible investor, you have no idea who it could be. All of those people are visiting your newsroom, and if they're not finding it now as the search moves to mobile, you have to move with the technology. And there is absolutely no doubt that there are now more searches done on mobile than there are on desktops. So it's time to make sure that your newsroom, A, has all the features, and B, is mobile friendly. So if you would like to have a complete complimentary evaluation of your current newsroom and a demo of how the Pressfeed newsroom works externally and the back end, and what it could do for your mobile visibility and your earned media, then just go to the Pressfeed site and click Get a Demo, and it'll send me an email and we'll schedule a time. So I'm going to check again and see if we have any more questions now that I've figured out how to do it. I don't think so. No, we still have the same questions. All right. Well, if we don't have any other questions, Shashi, was there anything else you wanted to add?
I mean, this is totally out of my realm of expertise, but I just wanted to add, like, one of the things that I keep saying is in a content marketing sphere, you look at 40% of content that you put out should be educating people about what you do. 40% should be seasonal, topical, and your expertise on things that happen every time. And then the last 20% should be about anything else that you think, thought leadership, people from your company. In the second half, the 40% of things, I think I'm seeing more and more PR people getting very savvy about how do we take a story and put out a press release about it and put it in a newsroom. The people who do it very well, like for example, the Census Bureau, the last place you would expect innovation to come out, right? But every time the Super Bowl is there, they put out a press release saying, here are all the stats from the census on the cities or places where the two competing Super Bowl teams are. I mean, I thought that was like really genius. It may be very simple. Most of the people on this webinar are experts. I'm sure they do this every time, but I thought using happenings locally and then adding your thought leadership and your views on it and putting it out as a press release sometimes could make you an expert too.
Absolutely, yeah. What's his name? Meerman Scott calls that newsjacking.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's a very old core media relations technique, is to find something that is happening in the news and then find some angle that's relevant to what you do. You just have to be careful that you do it correctly. That's a very good example because that's smart. That's their data that they're putting out, very relevant to what the story's about. There have been some that have tried to do it and have done it in a really insensitive way, and then it's kind of backlashed on them. In fact, this morning I was just looking for something for a client here in LA who does STEM training in South Los Angeles with disadvantaged kids. And we have National Math Week coming up. So I immediately was, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly what they're doing. They're teaching math and science to these kids. So you're right. But you just have to make sure that when you put all this effort into creating great content, that it's going to get found. Because to me, that's the two sides of the coin. You can invest all your talent and creativity and resources and energy and money into producing the most amazing newsroom, fantastic content, beautiful images, original images, wonderful videos. But you know, if nobody sees them, it's like, what did the tree fall in the forest thing? Then it just sits there and nobody ever sees it. So you have to, what you've done at that point is you've bought a beautiful Ferrari and you've parked it in the driveway and you don't have a driver's license. So the other side of it is making sure that it is available on the web, available on mobile devices, and as the mobile device thing grows more and more, and as you commented earlier, Pew says 2/3, but there are certain little pockets where it's way more than that. We know, for instance, that in the journalism area, it's way more than that. The millennials, it's way more than that. People who are looking for news, it's way more than that. So I would say from my viewpoint, in terms of homework, I would be very happy if you get in contact with me and we can look at your newsroom and really see what's going on. And if you give me access to your Google Analytics, I will help you to see where your mobile traffic is and how much mobile traffic you're getting. But really taking that checklist and going through your current newsroom and just seeing how far off the mark or not you are. And running your website through that Google mobile friendly test and at least see whether or not your whole site is mobile friendly. Because you could have a perfect newsroom with everything in it, with all the features that the media wants, 100% mobile friendly. You could have it up in 2 weeks. Okay, so if you have any other questions, please send them to me by email. And follow me on Twitter and Shashi. He's Shashi B, at Shashi B. And any other information you can find on the Pressfeed site. So Shashi, thank you very much for being with us and sharing your information. We really appreciate that. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on this. If people want to get in touch with me, Twitter is a great way. If any of you are in the local marketing arena, surefiresocial.com. But I know we didn't discuss this definitely, but I've actually gone through one of Sally's analysis of newsrooms at two companies that I previously worked in, and it's really useful. Usually the press rooms, and again, I'm sorry I use the word usually, but in the whole terms of website development, especially with corporations, they don't realize how important in a content marketing sphere that the PR department can really do. The storytelling, the experts that they have on board. So the development of the newsroom is usually relegated to a B or a C list. It shouldn't be. I mean, for all the points that Sally made, you want people to perceive your company, your brand the way it should be. And to do that, you have to put your stories in front of people and also give people who are seeking your message an easy way to do that. So I'm probably going to ask Sally to do this again for us, but I think that's a generous offer. It takes a lot of time, and the analysis will give you away. I mean, even if you, it's not about going for the product, it's about understanding what's out there and what you need to do.
Okay, thank you so much, Shashi. Much appreciated. And we will send out an email to everybody when the link to the video is available, probably by Monday, maybe before. So look out for our emails and for the invitation to next month's webinar. Bye.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thank
Really
you.
great to, and thank you for the tweets from a lot of people here.
Great, thank you. Bye.